Okay. I looked at my thing from yesterday, and I'm really sorry I can't get the resolution or the volume better. I'm having a terrible time with my setup. I listen to it on headphones, and it comes through on headphones. So you can either jack your speakers way up, or put it on headphones, and you can hear what I'm saying. Obviously, like I realized that there's a lot of points I made in the last video that don't fully. It's not the full picture. So I'm going to try to rectify that. First by saying, when I talk about rock and roll as being, the two main things in rock and roll are the instrumentation and the feel. The first thing, I guess, to get out of the way is like piano in the early days, like kind of like of rock and roll, was a big instrument. It came from stride piano and honky-tonk piano and stuff like that. And horns were a very big instrument, and also in early rock and roll. I think it's really like, let's see, for me, like when rock and roll gels, when rock and roll really becomes what it is when you have Chuck Berry and Bo Diddley and people like that, and that instrumentation is the one that, of course, the Beatles and the Rolling Stones and all these people mimicked, which is a guitar player, bass player, electric bass player, and a drummer. But or two guitars, a rhythm guitarist, a lead guitarist, an electric bass player, and a drummer. And I was thinking today, like I happened upon these videos of King Crimson. And I watched probably 45 minutes of interviews and stuff. I'm fascinated by Robert Fripp. I think he's a really interesting guy. It's interesting to hear him talk. And then I was listening to the band, which is one of my favorite groups, and I found like one of my favorite songs of all time, which is on the beginning of the last waltz. It's called "Don't Do It," and it's a cover of Marvin Gaye's song. And I just love to listen to the band. And so, but I think there was something in the interview of Robert Fripp that was very interesting. It was in a 1981 Discipline. They were playing Discipline, which is this extremely complex piece, very technical piece. And he was saying, well, this is most of the guitar part in Discipline is in 5/8, or I think it's 5/8. And this would not be unusual for Bulgarian folk singer. And since I'm European, I really am not worried about 4/4 rock and roll feel. And I think this perfectly highlights the issue I'm getting at. King Crimson, I don't know, at any point in their career, is not concerned with a 4/4 rock and roll feel. That rhythmic feel. And I think, consequently, is not really rock and roll. I don't really think, as many times as Bill Bruford can call themselves rock musicians, they're not playing rock and roll. I can't, so I guess that was sort of an interesting, and to see these two bands next to each other, like the band, everything is about feel. I mean, to give you an example, how many notes does Levon Helm play in one bar 4/4? He might play 4, he might play 6. And then you got Bill Bruford, how many beats does he play in a bar of 17/8 or whatever? He's playing like 60 notes or whatever. And that's the whole point, is like feel-based music isn't, the virtuosity is in how the music is played and not in how much you play it. And it's the quality of the playing rather than the quantity of the playing. Technical playing, there's nothing wrong with it, but that's not what rock and roll is all about. I mean, I think if you look at like contemporary classical music, and this is another issue, is that contemporary classical music, everything's mathematical. If it's a bar 4/4, then an eighth note is exactly mathematically an eighth identical. Well, when you play rock and roll, that's not the way rock and roll is played. The backbeat accentuates it, puts an X on the upbeat, and so then the upbeat, I guess you could say it elongates a little bit. If you have a feeling of a stagger onto this 2 and 4 of the bar 4/4. So really like that King Crimson is like, I mean, they would fit right in on a stage of contemporary classical music. I mean, the harmonies they use, the manner in which they play, and all that stuff would fit perfectly in contemporary classical music auditorium. You know, the dissonance and the technical virtuosity and all that stuff. So I mean, that's an interesting, kind of highlight right there, and that's kind of interesting because the reason it's interesting is because I think look, I mean, I've studied both classical and jazz music, and it's not any harder to play jazz or rock and roll, which are both field-based musics, and the field between jazz and rock and roll is pretty significantly different. But people say rock is straight eights. Well, in the beginning, it really wasn't. Chuck Berry and Bo Diddley don't play straight eights. But it's not any harder. I'm not saying I have a great swing feel. I mean, but it's not any harder to play jazz than it is to play classical, because the technical demands of classical music are really, really high. But jazz requires a lot more intuition. You can't really notate what you're going to do. You're gonna have to listen to the band, and you're gonna have to play in such a way as to I guess the word I'm looking for is the band should have everybody in the band should be playing with the same feel. So like, what I'm getting at is that in jazz, there's a lot of virtuosity and bebop. You play these really fast chromatic licks and stuff like that. But I mean, it's nothing compared to trying to play, like an advanced piano piece by Schoenberg or Bartok or something like that. It's just or Liszt or Chopin, even worse. I mean, whoa. And just there's stuff by Chopin and Liszt that's just ridiculous. I mean, you could spend 6 years, learning to play a certain pattern in all 12 keys, and then it's just ridiculous. There's lots of technical virtuosity required. But then at the same time, like in jazz, like you're not necessarily required to, to have that kind of velocity and all that stuff, but you're required to play with a swing feel. And it follows that in rock and roll there's a feel that you play with. And rock and roll, if anything, should require even less technical virtuosity. If you listen to Robbie Robertson, he's not a choppy player. He kind of like gets in a spot and kind of sells it. If you look at like